Good morning. I'm Allison Kendall, your worship associate for Earth Sunday. I'm also, and have been for many years, the chair of the Green Living Committee at UU Santa Monica. We meet monthly to discuss environmental challenges and what we can do as individuals and citizens to live in better harmony with the world. We recycle and reduce waste and plant trees and grow our own vegetables. We teach the kids to do that too. We insulate our homes and install rooftop solar panels. We carpool, bicycle, and buy hybrid and electric cars. And we often find these actions to be deeply satisfying. We encourage you to learn how you can reduce your own carbon footprint by answering a few questions on the website www.coolcalifornia.org. You can be a cool Californian too. We're a surprisingly tiny group, given that I imagine that every single one of you listening would agree that climate change is the single biggest threat to our existence and to that of many other living creatures and ecosystems. We've all seen melting polar ice, rising sea levels, and increasing wildfires, droughts, floods, and other disasters. The current rate of climate change threatens plant and animal species with extinction and human refugees with famine and drought. After 4 years spent ignoring the need for urgent action, the US just hosted a global climate summit and announced the goal of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions to 50% below the levels of 2005 by 2030. Proposed jobs and infrastructure bills include expanding solar and wind energy generation, shifting away from fossil fuels to using electricity in our homes and automobiles, and incentives for energy efficiency and reductions in pollution and emissions. This leadership by the world's wealthiest country has encouraged other global leaders to make similar levels of commitment at the climate summit this week. There's a lot that we can do individually to reduce our household impact on the environment. These actions allow us to live with integrity and to inspire others by example. But changing personal habits alone is not enough to get us to the sustainable future we need, or even the hotter, warmer world that most of us will be living in. Instead, we need to organize, to contact our leaders at every level of government, and to demand the bold actions needed to change our reliance on fossil fuels into one on renewable energy, our homes and buildings into those which can harvest the energy and water they need, and our transportation systems into safer, cleaner, and more equitable access, and our food into healthier, more sustainable systems that nourish all of us and the planet as well. We invite you to join our Green Living group in the Drawdown Eco Challenge, an online commitment to personal action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The challenge allows you to explore a wide range of potential environmental actions and their impact in reducing emissions. You can log your own actions and start to understand the magnitude of the challenge, as well as the type of changes which are needed. We celebrate this Earth Sunday 2021, which holds the promise of action on challenges too long ignored. If we commit to doing all we can personally, if we work together with all the organizations to which we belong, and if we reach out to leaders at every level of government, we can restore balance to a global ecosystem on the edge of collapse. This is a daunting task. It's way beyond one small committee of our church. After the service, our Green Living group will be joining the Coffee Hour Zoom to lead a discussion on actions you can take, both individually and collectively, with concrete steps you can take to renew our UU commitment to preserving the interdependent web of living of which we are a part. This Earth Sunday, let us honor the power of that web that unites us with every living creature and system, and our responsibility to healing and preserving it. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. It is a blessing to be with you in worship this morning. We light our chalice in this Earth Day service with the famous words of Chief Noah Seattle. If you have a chalice at home, you are invited to light it at this time. This we know. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. This we know. All things are connected like the blood which unites one family. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth, befalls the children of the earth. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand of it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves.
I hear a bird chirping up in the sky. I'd like to be free like that, spread my wings so high. I see the river flowing, water running by. I'd like to be that river, see what I might find. I feel the wind blowing, slowly changing time. I'd like to be the wind, I'd swirl and shape the sky. I smell the flowers blooming, opening for spring. I'd like to be those flowers, open to everything. Seasons change, the leaves, the snow and the sun. I'd like to be those seasons made up and undone. I taste the living earth, the seeds that grow within. I'd like to be that earth, the home where life begins. I see the moon horizon reaching into night. I'd like to be that moon, a knowing, glowing light. I know the silence as the world begins to wake. I'd like to be that silence as the morning breaks. Be free like that, spread my wings so high. I see the river flowing, water running by. I like to be that river, see what I might find. I slowly changing time. I like to be the wind, I swirl and shape the sky. I smell the flowers blooming, opening for spring. I'd like to be those flowers open to everything. I'd like to be those flowers open to everything.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Santa Monica. I'm Allison Kendall, your worship associate. Our worship team is delighted to provide for you this online sanctuary this morning. You may watch us on our Facebook group page, and you can also find us on YouTube. However you join us, we're glad you're here. Unitarian Universalism is not defined by creed or dogma, but is guided by principles that affirm the worth and dignity of every person and encourage an individual's search for truth and meaning. We honor the wonder of existence and believe that we are all connected to each other and to the interdependent web of life. Our beliefs are drawn from scripture and science, nature and philosophy, personal experience and ancient tradition. We are an open, affirming, and welcoming congregation, diverse in backgrounds, social locations, gender identities, ethnicities, sexual orientations, spiritualities, and philosophies of life. We are united in our desire to create a diverse, beloved community, to live the principles of our faith, and to serve the wider world. We acknowledge that our church building and the homes of most of our members are on traditional, ancestral, and unceded land of the Tongva people, who live here and have cared for this land for thousands of years. We recognize and mourn the great harm inflicted on the indigenous people of this country. We lift up their grace, resilience, and their relationship with these sacred lands. We welcome all of you who worship with us from Santa Monica to across the country and across the Atlantic Ocean, and perhaps the Pacific as well. Whether this is your first time with us or you've worshiped here all your life, you are welcome here this morning. Our service is live streamed on Facebook and on YouTube. After worship, we are live on Zoom for a Zoom coffee hour. Please come to the coffee hour today. We'll be discussing specific ideas for actions you can take to help heal our Mother Earth. We also have small groups for visitors and an opportunity to talk more deeply about the sermon today, as well as committee meetings. There are many opportunities for connecting and growing at UUSM. Please check out our webpage at uusm.org for more information about the range of activities happening in our church, whether our campus is open or closed as it is in these current days. Thank you and welcome.
My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak, her sap doth run in my veins, boundless my soul like the open sky.
as they answer the moon, rushing on a far distant land. Winging my song is the wind of my breast, and my love blows over the land. And my love, and my love, and my love blows over the land. My foot carries days of the old into new. Our dreaming shows us the way. Wondrous our faith settles deep in the earth, rising green to bring a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day.
El amor es la enseñanza de esta iglesia.
Love is the doctrine of this church.
Buscar la verdad es su sacramento y el servicio es la oración.
The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer.
Vivir juntos en paz.
To dwell together in peace.
Buscar el conocimiento en la libertad.
To seek knowledge in freedom.
Servir a la humanidad en comunión.
To serve humankind in fellowship.
Así es como convenimos unos a otros.
Thus do we covenant with each other.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung through every land by every tongue.
Good morning. This morning, we're going to talk about Hawaii. Specifically, how did Hawaii, a mountainous, volcanic landscape, come into existence? Now, unlike many stories of creation, the land of Hawaii was actually created by two separate gods, working separately. Here's how the story goes. Now, in the beginning, Maui was one of many brothers, but he was the last born brother. So he was the youngest and the smallest, and this added up to him not being that great of a fisher. But he would always beg his brothers, please take me fishing, please take me fishing. And so they did. But he got very crafty and would often distract them to steal the fish off their line. Now, his brothers let this go on for a while, but then they wised up and put their feet down and said, we are not taking you fishing anymore. Now, poor Maui, being the youngest brother and the smallest brother and just wanting to belong, went sad and sulked. Now, his mother noticed this and she felt pretty bad for him and said, okay, I think I can help you out here, maybe even the playing field a bit. So I want you to go and get this magic hook. And Maui looked at his mom and was like, okay, I don't know if this is going to work, but sure. Now he goes, he grabs this magic hook, his mother says, when you cast this hook
wait for it to snag on land, and pull. Maui goes, okay, sure. Wanting to prove that he is the absolute best fisher, that he can totally hang out with his bigger, older brothers. So he goes back to his brothers and begs, please, this one last time, just take me fishing. I promise I won't steal your fish. And of course, being brothers, they agreed. So as they're out fishing, my brothers are kind of looking at each other. What's Maui gonna do? Keep an eye out. He's definitely gonna steal our fish. Maui casts this magic hook that his mother had him get and simply waits and waits, and then he feels the hook snag on land and he begins to pull, and suddenly the oceans start to roil. Huge waves begin to crash, the wind is blowing, and slowly but surely something is rising on Maui's hook. But things are getting actually very intense, maybe a little more intense than Maui thought they would, and so he told his brothers, paddle the boat as fast as you can, and I'll keep pulling us toward whatever it is. And suddenly mountaintops burst through the ocean, and the waves are going wild, and Maui says, no matter what, don't look back. But of course, one of his brothers does, because he's in awe that little tiny Maui is not just fishing land from the ocean, but creating this wild storm, and he looks back, and suddenly the magic of the hook stops, with only the mountaintops visible on Maui's hook. And so Maui leaves his half-formed creation and goes about his godly way. Later, another goddess was on a trip from Tahiti, and her name was Pele. Now, Pele was looking for a place to call home, and she paddled with her shark-head brother, another god, and she was paddling, and suddenly she saw these mountains ringed in beautiful clouds, and said, that is where I'm going to live. And her brother goes, okay, sure, I guess. And they pull up to Maui's mountain range. This pops out of the ocean. And they begin to explore. And Pele wants to see what's hidden by the clouds. And so she hikes all the way to the tallest peak, Kilauea, and discovers that it's sunken. The top of the mountain has collapsed in on itself, and she takes her magic staff that was given to her by Sky Father and slams it down into the crater of Kilauea. And suddenly fire and lava sprout, and lush things begin to grow, and Pele has found her home. But so has her brother. There's a particular cliff near Kilauea that he loves the wind and the view, and so to honor her brother, Pele swore that she would never obstruct his view, and so, despite being an extremely high cliff, she never lets fog or clouds hinder the view from this wild cliff that belongs to her brother. And so she lived there. Well, lives there. The goddess of fire, protecting the island, creating new ones with every eruption of Maui's volcanoes, and that is the story of one of the most beautiful habitats in the world, created by a little brother who just wanted to belong, and a sister who had dominion over fire. And that is our story for today.
Fuente di amor, ven hacia mí, y al corazón cántale tu compasión, sopla al volar, sube en la mar, guiar la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
We enter into our time for spiritual deepening through spiritual exercise. You're invited to begin to enter into a state of mindfulness and prayerfulness and meditation. Now, as we begin, I would like to personally invite you to the celebration of life of our beloved Reverend Ernie Pipes on Saturday, May 1st at 1 p.m. on Zoom. Now, if you're a member or a friend of the church, you should have already received a save the date by email, and you'll receive another in the next few days with the Zoom link. Please be sure to share this information with those who don't have internet access in our community and in our wider community. It is possible to attend and participate by phone using the Zoom information. Please contact the church office if you did not receive the save the date and would like to attend. We hope to celebrate his trailblazing life with you next Saturday. Now, also, I want to ask you to hold in your hearts all of our siblings of color in the wake of the multitude of police killings of black men and boys in recent days. We applaud the guilty verdict in the murder of George Floyd, but we know that the killings continue and much work remains. All are impacted by this trauma, but none more so than those who have to live with the injustices of policing and state violence every day. Black lives matter. Your lives matter to us. We will not rest until there is racial justice for all. Now, our mindfulness prayer this morning is Bring Us Close to the Earth by Reverend Lynn Cox. It will be followed by our time for silent meditation. Spirit of life, ground of our being, root of unified mystery growing into myriad branches of expression, bring us together now. Bring us close to the earth, ear to the whispering grass, quietly, attentively, waiting with slow breaths, listening for the very stones to cry out with their rocky stories of tectonic plates meeting and parting, meeting, their mineral memories of Hadean days, molten rock flowing and joining, their ancient legends of stars born out of the collapse of other stars, Help us to remember. Help us to piece together our oneness with matter, our oneness that matters. With one more deep breath, may we rise, star stuff walking and rolling, across the surface of an impossible blue-green planet. May we join together to heal what is divided. May we find wholeness within, without, among, between. Eternal Source, Seed of the universe, help us to grow peace. So be it. Blessed be. Amen. Let us meditate now together in the beauty of silence for a few minutes. I will ring the singing bowl to begin and end our time for silent meditation. We are the earth. We are born of the jagged rocks and the fertile soil. The great seas and rivers flow in our veins. Our flesh is like the flesh of the elephant, the tiger, the chimpanzee. Our senses are like those of all of the life that blossoms all over our planet. The winds above us also move through us and within us, cycling through our beings with each inhalation, each exhalation. Our heart beats with the pulse of life. We are made of the earth. We are no different from nature. Consciousness is but the crown of nature, what arises that is greater than the sum of its parts. Our beings are the result of an unfolding that began some 3.8 billion years ago. What we are is the result of an interdependent cosmic, atmospheric, ecological, and biological processes all playing out over the course of billions of years. Consciousness as we know it emerges in this sea of elemental forces and then continues to complexify and diversify across time, right up into the present moment, making our experiencing of this very moment possible. And we are still embedded in this vast, interdependent web of all existence that holds us close to the earth, provides sustenance and nourishment for our beings, and shelters our lives so that we can grow and flourish as people. We are truly the earth. Our relations include the sun that warms our planet, the moon and the stars that illuminate the night, the mountains and oceans that encircle us, and all of the other beings that dwell with us on our planet home. Our ancestors include human beings and everything that evolved before us. We are deeply connected to all of existence. The British philosopher, Buddhist teacher, and Episcopal priest Alan Watts had noted that it is through our eyes that the universe is perceiving itself. It is through our ears the universe is listening to its harmonies. We are the witnesses through which the universe becomes conscious of its glory, of its magnificence. End quote. We are nature reflecting back upon its existence, becoming aware of itself in a very real way. Our seventh Unitarian Universalist principle affirms that we are part of the interdependent web of all existence, but rarely do we ever really stop and contemplate all that this means. Rarely do we remember how every fiber of our beings are connected to the natural world and our larger universe. When we remember our rootedness in all things, we marvel at our sacred place in this web of all existence. We must remember and we must marvel if we are to have any hope of healing humanity and our beautiful planet home. Now, the climate crisis is the single largest and most threatening challenge facing humanity, and it has roots deep in white supremacy, cis-heteropatriarchy, and capitalism. The woes of our current pandemic are but a foreshadowing of the consequences we will face if humanity does not take immediate and bold action to divert us from environmental catastrophe. The state of affairs on planet Earth are already grim. We are in the midst of the climate crisis right now, and things are projected to get much worse without this dramatic action to curb greenhouse gases and alter our relationship fundamentally with the natural world. NASA reports that the global temperature is rising, ocean temperatures are rising, the ice sheets are melting, the glaciers are retreating, snow cover is decreasing, Arctic sea ice is melting, sea levels are rising, extreme weather events are increasing, and the ocean is acidifying, and this is nearly certainly the result of humanity's impact on the natural environment over the past century. We've had an exploitative and neglectful relationship that has not honored our sacred interdependence with all of existence. Now, those of us living in California are already living with years of severe drought, destructive wildfires, and toxic air pollution. Across the country, people are experiencing the effects of climate change, including dramatic shifts in seasonal weather and intense and lethal weather events. Despite warnings from scientists, around the globe and firsthand experience of these early ramifications of climate change, our society is failing to make the changes necessary to preserve life on this planet as we know it. Pamela Spar explores this challenge in the book Justice on Earth: People of Faith Working at the Intersections of Race, Class, and Environment. If you haven't already read this UUA Common Read, I highly recommend it for liberal, faith-based, and intersectional perspectives on how we can better engage in the work of environmental justice. She writes, "Scientists the world over have played an invaluable role in addressing the climate crisis. They have spoken truth when not everyone has wanted to hear it, raised crucial red flags of alarm, and offered important insights about productive technical solutions. However, when it comes to climate change, the truth has not set us free. It hasn't set us free as Unitarian Universalists because our approach has often been emotionally and spiritually sterile. It's often failed to be sufficiently rigorous in understanding and integrating racial, economic, and gender justice dimensions at its core. And it hasn't been sufficiently inspiring, bold, inclusive, and collaborative in crafting a vision of the way forward." End quote. We have the science and the facts, and we've had them for decades at this point, but this still hasn't been enough to inspire the kind of bold action that we need internationally at all levels of our government and in our personal lives. We have to offer a vision of the green future that's more compelling, that's more inclusive, and that's deeper in its analysis of intersectionality, of how the environmental crisis is intertwined with white supremacy, capitalism, and the cis-heteropatriarchy, to have a broader and more inclusive global movement for justice. We have to remember that the environmental movement is a relatively young movement, and this crisis only emerged in the last century following rapid industrialization and population growth. Paula Cole-Jones writes in the same book, "Widespread public concern about pollution was triggered by the 1962 publication of Rachel Carson's book Silent Spring." Carson, prophetic queer woman, I might add, got people to see that corporate pollution was a personal issue. And she's credited with laying the foundation of the environmental movement by waking people up. President John F. Kennedy's administration began to regulate industry in order to protect the environment. And the modern environmental movement was a response to the economic boom experienced in the United States following World War II. It was established with the success of the first Earth Day in 1970, end quote. So it's only been in the last 60 years that our environmental movement has taken shape. It is formed in the wake of the civil rights movement, and though racial justice work wasn't integrated in the early years of organizing and activism, the movement had been inspired and informed by the strategizing and successes of the civil rights movement. In our modern day, we understand that how we treat the environment is deeply related to how we've treated each other historically. The Reverend Dr. Sherry Prudhomme points to the eminent theologian James Cone, who observed in his article, "Whose Earth Is It Anyway?" the logic that led to slavery and segregation in the Americas, colonization and apartheid in Africa, and the rule of white supremacy throughout the world is the same one that leads to the exploitation of animals and the ravishing of nature. End quote. So any vision we articulate has got to acknowledge the interconnected ways in which these societal problems emerged and the potential of an intersectional movement for justice to advance collective liberation. Environmentalism has to confront white supremacy, cis-heteropatriarchy, and the unjust economic order, and it also has to cast a vision that integrates the solutions to the multitude of problems we are facing in the present day. Yes, we need a Green New Deal and an infrastructure plan that equips us for a green future, but even these will not be enough to avert the crisis. In their present forms, they will merely dampen the effects of this looming global catastrophe. Pamela Spar encourages us to listen to the wisdom of activist Naomi Klein. In This Changes Everything, Capitalism versus the Climate, Klein writes, fundamentally, the task is to articulate not just an alternative set of policy proposals, but also an alternative worldview to rival the one at the heart of the environmental crisis, embedded in interdependence rather than hyper-individualism, reciprocity rather than dominance, and cooperation rather than hierarchy. This is another lesson from transformative movements of the past. All of them understood the process of shifting cultural values was central to their work. And so they dreamed in public, showed humanity a better version of itself, modeled different values in their own behavior, and in the process liberated the political imagination and rapidly altered the sense of what was possible. They were also unafraid of the language of morality, to give the pragmatic cost-benefit argument a rest, and to speak of right and wrong, of love and indignation." End quote. And so the task before us is to dream in public of a green future with justice for all, to uplift our liberal religious values of interdependence, reciprocity, and cooperation, and to name the evils that are being done to our planet home, that are being done to each of us and the generations that will follow us. What is your dream of the green future? What might a society that actively addresses the environmental crisis, white supremacy, and gender and economic injustices look like? What might our lives be like if we were to live into that world? Might the earth herself dream a new future into being through us? Let us begin to dream together by remembering deeply that we are the earth.
We are a community that works for more than ourselves. Our practice here at the Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Santa Monica is to dedicate half of our Sunday offering to organizations who are doing work in the world that resonates with our own Unitarian Universalist principles. The other 50% of the offering is used to support the life of our church. This month, half of our Sunday offering will go to the Unitarian Universalist Ministry for the Earth. UUMFE has as its mission to be a wellspring of spiritual and educational grounding and practical support for bold, accountable action for environmental justice, climate justice, and the flourishing of all life. It has as its vision a world in which reverence, gratitude, and care for each other and for the living earth are central to the lives of all people. These statements from the UU Ministry for the Earth resonate with us. We affirm and promote the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism and the proposed 8th principle, opposing racism and oppression. And we understand climate justice to be a moral imperative. We affirm and promote the framework of race and class-informed environmental justice and strive to center the leadership needs of frontline communities. We know that individual consumption choices are not enough. It is only through partnership and collective action that we can save our biosphere. We also encourage you to give to the general fund of our church. We are not worshiping in our building right now due to the pandemic, nor can any of the rooms on our campus be used by the many groups that have met there for years. So if you are able, and we know some of you are not, please give generously. Your giving makes a big difference. There are 3 ways to give: over text, through our website, or by mailing a check. Using your smartphone, text 844-982-0209 with the donation amount and the code for where the funds will be posted. To make a generous congregation contribution, use code GCC or use the QR code that you see on your screen. On our website, you can make a one-time donation or set up recurring payments for your pledge or for another purpose. Thank you for your generous support.
They say we are violent, we are unarmed. They say we are rioting, we are praying. Singing for the 7th granddaughter, indigenous women offer tobacco and sage to the police. One officer accepts the braid of sweet grass I hold up. That officer gives me hope. On earth, the earth, planet of the prophets, we have water protectors, singing for water. We cannot live without water. We cannot live without water. water protectors. Mini, Wichoni, water protectors. Mini, Wichoni, water protectors. Water invites a living ceremony. Water is life, meaning which
Below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now. Never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I climb the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in the beautiful blue boat
I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Our benediction this morning is adapted from Rise by Gretchen Halley. Because the tides are rising, so must we rise. To this moment, rise to this day, rise to this life, this place in the web that is yours and ours, rise. Because the earth remains our only home, and we, fellow travelers, its only hope for healing, for wholeness, salvation, rise before the mystery, before the Big Bang that started it all, that this infinite universe still takes notice of us, still feels the in and out of our breath, still holds us, connects us, rise, or surrender with gratitude for this beauty, this chance to be a part of it all, to give back, to weave life, past, present, future, everywhere, always as one. Go forth and be blessed, and be a blessing.